To order, Gail, please.
Anderson.
Present.
Hope. It was Tyler Stahn. Kim. Here. John.
Here.
And Deb. Here.
Why did I get last name? They got all first names? Sorry.
Thank you, Gail. First order of business is to approve the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Stands approved. Thank you. First item on the agenda is the school calendar hearing. And is there anyone here that would like to discuss the calendar? Hearing none, the hearing is now closed. Is there anything from our fellow board members with regard to the calendar? Okay. Do we want to have a motion to approve that?
No, you can just adjourn it.
Okay.
You can go ahead and eliminate number 2, the approval of the agenda on the second piece.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion to close the calendar hearing.
So
Second.
Second.
Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
All opposed? We stand adjourned from the hearing. And so our first, we'll kind of skip to item 402 here, and we'll have the second grade volunteer giving project presentation.
All right, we are about 3/5 of the second grade team. I'm Hallie Overender.
I'm Kayla Forrest.
Jenny Pudens. Well, and Lee Randall. Sorry, she is here tonight. Randy couldn't make it because he's coaching some basketball, I think. But we have Brody Soma, he's in my class. Benjamin Randall is in Mrs. Forrest, and Emma Deal is in Mr. C6.
Yes. I bet she is encouraged.
Every year we have kind of done a giving project where we send a contract home and kids do chores to earn money, and we take that money and we buy gifts for needy foster kids. So we kind of took that project a step further this year and added a little bit to it. So we added the caroling at the nursing home, which Mrs. Brown takes them to. We did holiday cards for the nursing homes. We had our Joy of Giving contract, which is where the kids go home. They tell their parents the chores that they want to do. Their parents set an amount of money that they will give them for these chores. And then they bring the contract back and the money. And we do this for youth and shelter services, foster children, and who is the lady? Bambi Schrader, that gives us this contact information. So this year we really thought we want one child per class, so each class could really do that project and research the items that we wanted to buy for them. So we got 5 children this year. We got the most money that we've ever brought in for this project, which was amazing to see the generosity of the kids this year. But we took from the list that we got from Bambi Schrader. She had some needs and wants, and the kids kind of divided that out into what we would buy. We researched the items on either Amazon, well, pretty much just Amazon, right? And we researched kind of top 3 gifts that we would buy. So if they wanted snow pants, the kids got to look, what brands would we buy, what colors would we buy. They voted on as a class things that we would get. We had our budget because each day as the kids brought in their money for chores, we added it up and tallied it all up and said, okay, we have so much money to buy, but we also have to buy wrapping paper, we have to buy other things on top of that. So we budgeted all that in. They did a great job researching all of that for us. Then we wrapped our presents. All of your kids wrapped the individual presents. We pulled them over to do that. And then we presented them to Bambi Schrader when she came to the school. This year we had 2 foster moms come and talk to the kids also. Were they foster moms of kids that we gave gifts to? Yes. A couple of the boys, right? One mom was a foster mom to some of the boys that we gave presents to, so that was great to see them actually going to those people in need. And then every time after each one of our parts, we had students do a self-reflection. So on the caroling at the nursing home, that was kind of a giving of our talent. And so we would have kids reflect on how have they given their talent in their community, and if they couldn't think of something else besides caroling, then they wrote about caroling. We also had, is this on your next slide?
Yeah,
Am I going too fast? Oh, sorry, that's the Joy of Giving contract. Then we also had 3 volunteers each week come and talk, whether it was about volunteering their time, their talent, or their money. So Mr. Beecher gladly came in and did that for us.
And they all 3 actually sat and listened to Mr. Beecher, so they could.
Do you guys have anything more to say about what you learned or what Mr. Beecher came and talked to you about? What did he come and tell you about? What does he try and get money for? Emma, do you remember?
United Way.
The United Way. And who gives money to the United Way, Emma? Who could possibly give money?
People that live in the community.
The people that live in the community. Did Mr. Beecher maybe even give money to the United Way? Did teachers give money to the United Way? Yes. Yep. So we talked about that. We talked about how much money they would raise. Anything else that you guys want to say about that? No?
Maybe the next one?
Okay.
Oops, the wrong way.
This was Mr. Schlurke. He came and talked to us about volunteering his time. Brody, did you go see this one?
No.
No.
I don't think we did.
No,
Oh, wait,
but
did you go?
I
Do
did.
you remember what
I
you
did.
volunteered? Oh, you did?
Yeah, volunteered to say names that were really hard, like at games for Iowa State.
For football games?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he had to practice them, didn't he? Do you remember what he did when he said, did he say somebody's name wrong?
Spinach name because it's on the board.
Yeah. Yeah. And he wrote him a letter, didn't he, about he apologized for saying his name incorrectly. So, yeah.
It was a football player.
Yeah.
From a different school.
I couldn't do that job. So he was another one of our speakers that came in to volunteer his talent really in his time. Cindy Krukenberg talked to us about how she volunteers her time. Did any of you see Cindy? Mrs. Krukenberg? She volunteers her talent at the church, sewing and tying quilts and things like that, and she volunteers on her one day off from work. One question we got from a lot of kids when they were reflecting is how did you get into volunteering? How did you find out about all of these opportunities, and can we volunteer as kids? And so we really talked about that and trying to reinforce that even as kids you can start volunteering, and that's really where volunteering, if you start as kids, you'll volunteer as an adult. So, next one.
This was just a student in my classroom that showed, and so this is what our reflection sheet looked like, and it's kind of hard to see, but she said, what are you doing in your picture? And she was helping at a food pantry. So even in 2nd grade, the students are going out into our community and helping. And you can go on to the next slide. And just some more ways that we can volunteer with our money. Some familiar faces.
That's right, stirring everybody up.
No, I think you asked a question. And I was like, I guess me too.
Benjamin, this was yours. Can you tell them what you're doing in that picture?
I'm giving my teacher money to give to Gage for to buy him stuff.
Gage was the foster child, right, that your class had.
I bet your time.
And how did you feel when you gave that money? What did you say? How did you feel?
I felt happy.
And how do you think Gage felt?
Happy.
Happy also. Okay. What was your question? Oh, why is it important to give your money so we can make people happy, right? Put a smile on their face. That's important, yeah.
These are some middle schoolers that came over to talk with the second graders about volunteering their talent for the Nutcracker, a performance that they are in, and all the time that they put into that as well to perform for the various people that see the show. We did have several different students come in and also present to the second grade as well. We had Gretchen and Laurel Mazurek come in and play the piano because they played for different hospitals and things throughout the year. And just so besides having the adult figures in for the second grade to see, we also had some middle schoolers and intermediate students as well so that they could connect with them.
And the next slide is a video of them dancing, which is oh wait, the next one then. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe it's not. Oh, there it
Oh
is.
no.
In the dark.
It should, if you looked at it, it should have worked, but
Oh.
it's okay.
So we want to see this.
I think I saw them.
Hopefully.
Yeah, it was, they did a
Oh,
amazing.
maybe not.
We all see it.
Piano and yeah, the kids loved this, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They loved seeing kids volunteering too. That was a fun part.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't have permission.
That's okay. We'll send it to you.
Kim and Brian to show us probably.
We actually
Yeah,
have
yeah.
do you want to
Thank you.
We had our first move going.
We were really blessed when we reached out to all of the people that and contacted him about volunteering their time and their talent and how maybe their organization works with volunteering money. Just everybody was so over generous on giving their time and so willing to come in and talk to the kids, and it was very beneficial to them as well.
So then this was just one class. This is my class with just the presents that they spent their money on to buy, wrapped. They did everything just for one foster child. So imagine this times 5.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And that is some good rapping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I
Very
saw
good
that, I was
rapping.
like,
A lot of the kids have tips from their parents about rapping.
that's impressive. That took time, I'm sure.
And then because our kids did such an amazing job this year with their chores and giving of their money, we had hundreds of dollars worth of extra funds that we were trying to figure out, do we buy more presents for these foster children? But they are, we have already filled all of their needs and wants on their list, so we thought, let's help somebody else. So we gave money towards, how many is there? 8 teenagers for an angel tree gift at one of the local churches. We were able to buy more presents and give to those in need over the holidays. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That is amazing.
So the kids really, really had fun. I mean, every day when we would add more money to it or we'd research more on Amazon, they would just be overjoyed. The presents would come and they'd be like, oh my goodness, they would want to wrap it. So it was a great, great project. Do you guys have anything more to say? You want to say your favorite part? Did you like the caroling, making cards? Shopping on Amazon.
Shopping on Amazon.
Shopping for all the others.
Because usually that's what we do at my parents' house.
Tell me more about that.
So when you grow up, are you going to want to join the school board?
Straight face.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah. It would be volunteering your time.
Were you surprised that kids of any age can volunteer? I mean, look at all of the good that you guys did. Are you excited? Do you think this might make you want to do it again? It can be fun, right?
Fair enough.
And look, you're volunteering your time right now,
Exactly.
right?
This
And
counts.
your talent. That's awesome. Thank you for representing second grade. You did a great job.
Great job.
Okay.
One thing I want to add that second grade didn't say that I think is most impressive is, as they said before, this is a project that they've done ongoing for several years. And last year, the PBL project that they chose to do, they really came back after they got their feedback and said, you know, it was still a great project and it was still, you know, everything we had, but we felt like we could be more PBL, like we could have more of the kids' thoughtfulness and some problem solving. And so I really was appreciative of how much time and effort they spent to make sure that some of those things that they didn't get as much as they wanted the first time out, that they revised to make that happen.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
We changed the agenda. That you'll notice that we have public forum at the beginning of the meeting, and we also have public forum after new business. So we're going to hope for an influx so that we can use those time frames.
Yeah, look at the camera when you say that.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't see anyone here for public forum, so we will move on to the 2017-18 district priorities and annual goals.
Let's take a look at the ones that have been turned red. Would anyone like to take off with some of the information there? I don't know who's. Was that one that was turned red from last time?
I think we did turn this red last time, the one on the instructional practices. But I can't remember if we had, did we share this out?
You shared that.
Okay, then I'm not sure about this time.
Okay, so it just needs to be changed back, changed to
Oh,
voluntary.
then,
Okay.
yeah.
Did you add the change about the
That's what I
second
did.
training?
Did I say that about, did I say that we actually have a chance to train here in-house again? Did I share this last time?
I don't think so.
Okay, okay, so, no, that's not anything to be sorry about. We actually have a chance to train teachers. We didn't think we'd be able to do it all. We actually are going to have Dr. Valentine come right after spring break on March 1st. So we will be doing another in-house training on March 21st. So what that is going to do to our timeline is we were planning a half a day of training for our teachers that we were going to do just to kind of get them up to speed. But now, since we're going to do a full day of training with the actual trainers, we're not going to do the half a day training. We're still going to do the February in a couple weeks. We're still going to do that first baseline, and that will just be instructional coaches. Then we'll have the March 21st training, and we have, I think, 11 teachers signed up. So we've got 2 or 3 from every building. Then when we do the April data collecting day, that will be teachers and instructional coaches. And then that group will be our IPI lead team on leading those discussions with our staff, with building staff on what that data looks like. But we just decided, when we found out we had the opportunity to have the in-house training, we thought, why would we pull teachers out for a half a day when we can actually have the real trainers doing it and to get the full-blown training? So that's what we decided to get the most bang for our buck, to do it that way.
That's awesome.
So
I love that, because I think like sitting in that SIAC meeting, hearing patrons, and I think teachers from other districts who've done this, like they said how important that was. I'm really happy we can make that change.
So I think that, yeah, we listened. So that would.
Selfishly, I want to see all this data.
So
What is sort of the, and I want to be cautious or like respectful of how you all need to think and use this data, but like, when do we get to start to see some of that baseline engagement
well, we
data?
can see the baseline data after we get the buildings done in February. I mean, by then, we will have baseline data, district baseline data at the next school board meeting.
That would be amazing.
So
But one thing we have said is
yes,
we will only share it.
we'll share it as a district.
Oh yeah, no, that's
yeah, but no, we will have district data. We'll have one round of data in March that we can share out at the March meeting.
That's super fast. Thank you. That's exciting.
And then you went to this training the first go around?
Yeah, I did.
And then would their ability be for any board members to board members to sit in.
If anybody's willing and would like to come on the 21st, which I'd have to look and see what March 21st is. I think it's I don't know, I'd have to look on my calendar, but
Is
I
that
would be,
Wednesday.
what was
Is
that?
that during spring break? No.
Week after.
It's the week after spring break. No, we wouldn't be. I don't know that I could get 11 teachers to say I'm on spring break.
If you
was
could
looking
pull
at
that off,
this
that's
just
engagement
calendar.
right there.
Sorry, but-
That's employee engagement we would have
That's
going on then.
But no, if anybody is interested, just let me know and I will talk to Dr. Valentine and see what we can set up. He was very willing to
Yeah,
the first round, so I don't know why he wouldn't the second round.
I mean, you observe, right? But it's rather than maybe be really totally active and like asking questions and stuff, but I just learned so much just being there, so if you have the time, I mean, I recommend it. I think it gives you some context and
It was a full
So you
day of
understand.
learning.
it was, well, I was just reading stuff. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Another thing that I did was I sent out an email to the patrons about it was about the SSA. At that time, the governor was proposing 1.5. Now they've looked at the 1.0, so they've dropped that down a little bit. Regardless, I think it's important that people understand what that means and how that affects us. We can be a growing district and still have challenges when you have a 1.0 SSA. The other thing that we're trying to do, and I didn't put it on there to turn it red, but we're trying to make sure, and if you had a chance to be at the forum, we're trying to make sure that people understand what type of impact this will have on them financially as we look at the bond referendum. And I think that that's important too. I think that people are very receptive to that. But again, probably another thing that I need to get out is to make sure, and I don't know, I haven't followed the legislation on it, as far as the extending the penny. Has that still discussion out there? It's 2029 is the time frame right now. If they would extend that, that would help any schools that want to look at any type of bonding to be able to use that. So that'll probably be the next thing that you see. But you could continually do this with people, because again, sometimes people think it's kind of whatever, dry, but it's important things that they need to know.
I have a question about that, like, because I was looking through the various sites, like the school boards, IASB, various things. Are there like websites or other areas where we can kind of link and share that, kind of share this kind of information, maybe more generally? I know this is what this means to us, SSA 1%. Are there, like, does the Department of Education have a website where they have facts about this kind of stuff that we can kind of supplement it?
They would have facts
Do you know
about
what I
some
mean?
of
It's
this.
so muddled though, it's
Is
all
it
hard
muddled?
to
And maybe it's
The School Board
too.
Association does a better job
Yep.
of communicating those things.
I just wondered, I thought it was, the communication was good, but I just wondered if there was ways like we can, for people who maybe want to look more into it and understand more, I didn't know if there were
Yep.
those sites. I didn't easily find them, so
Mhm.
I didn't know if they existed, to be honest, but.
When it comes to like education finance stuff, it feels like
It's tough.
it's so hard. I mean, 2.5 years into it, I'm finally understanding enough where I can keep up with conversations. But yeah, like I've searched so much for these things, and I'm not smart with finance to start with, and then you add in the education side. It's tough.
Yeah. I kinda do.
No worries. Any other issues on the district priorities or the annual goals? Anything anybody'd like to talk about? Back row. Okay. Announcements and celebrations.
I'm so excited.
You guys have anything that you want to announce or celebrate?
I think you probably all saw in the Ames trip, but where we went and got our award from Department of Ed and the governor, just pretty exciting. It was
Yeah,
fun.
congratulations.
That's great.
Very cool. Yeah, I saw that. Newspaper and all, picture.
I think that we didn't really, we knew it was, that's, when you think of what the state average is, like 39% of your IEP kids are proficient, and our intermediate kids are at 79%, correct?
I think it was 78, 35.
Okay, oh.
Just a few percent, so.
But really think of that. I don't think we really sat down and thought about that until we were sitting down there, and what the amount of work it takes to get to that, and what that actually means when we dig down into data like that, and that we have, you know, we don't have like I mean, there was 4 different groups that were honored, and you were looking at different subgroups of populations, and we don't have a lot of different subpopulations of groups here. And I just think it's something that there's just a lot of hard work that goes into that, that's all I'll say.
I think too, just to add on to what they've said, it is super impressive when you go down to something like this, and the governor comes in, lieutenant governor, the head of the DE, some of the department heads of the DE, the state board of education was there. I mean, these were the top people in the state are involved in education, and they're there honoring our intermediate school. So I think that that was outstanding. That was just a kudos to you and your building.
Do other schools, like, I imagine you network and stuff with a lot of other schools, but do you guys ever get an opportunity to share what you do and things like that with other schools? Or is it kind of everybody does their own thing?
Yeah, no, I mean, just like administratively once a month, the area principals we meet, like elementary principals, and I know Chris has, Mike has middle school, and has high school area principals. I'm sorry. But then even on top of that, I mean, we have other districts that will email, you know, either Stacy or I, or even our coaches, because coaches have made connections, and hey, what do you do for this? Oh, connect and watch this.
That's cool.
And then it's always like, you know, we are not perfect here, so I'm always constantly, well, what do you do? Because I would love to. This award has definitely opened the gates for lots of questions, which is awesome. We just share what we do, and then I get to learn what they do differently and add and tweak. Come next week from Marshalltown to observe. And so it's just, yeah, I think it just helps open those gates, because the more we can learn from each other, the better.
I would just think that these would just be
opportunities.
Yeah, opportunities to do that. Just like you said, I think that's great. That we might be the ones who are doing it, you know, maybe being recognized, but there's maybe always somebody else doing it a little different. You're constantly kind of evaluating it, trying to say.
Everybody has different groups of kids and teachers, so there's a lot of variables, but as long as we can, hopefully I'll get the end result.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Congratulations.
Any other items for?
I was just going to share that about, so we joined in the fall, we joined at Leader 21. And I know some of you went to, at the school board convention, you went and I know Deb, you went to the session that Van Meter did. And I know John, you also spoke about the profile of a graduate. I have been in contact with their curriculum director there, and myself and Vic is going to join me. We're going to be going on Monday to Van Meter because they're going to be unveiling their portrait of a graduate. They're finalizing, they've gone through the steps with the different groups that they've done the work with, and they're going to be doing their final piece with their staff, and then how that kind of funnels into that work that they'll be doing, and you know, ultimately, how does that get down to the students, and what are they doing in the classroom? I mean, because yeah, you can do this great work for, you know, profile of a graduate, you've got these words, but what does that actually mean for the classroom? You know what I mean? So we're going to be going down there Monday, and I mean, that's kind of where our next steps are. We just kind of want to see what does it look like in action, and I just want to pick their brain as to how did they get this started, what kind of community involvement did they get, and one thing that they did say is they had a really strong, they didn't feel that they had to go and tweak their mission, because that mission already spoke to what this is, but that's something that we might want to talk about, because we've had our mission for a long, and when I say mission, I'm not talking about every student every day. I'm talking about our mission that, you know, we've got it on our emails and all that. It's a much longer statement. But how does that feed into, does that speak to what we want a graduate to look like that leaves our district? And that how that work really, those things, how are those two things aligned? So I think as we think about the next month or two, as we talk about what is our strategic plan as we move forward professional development wise and the work that we want to do, and really, you know, partnering with you all, what is that work going to look like? And I think this is getting us well on the way to that. And why would we want to recreate the wheel? And Van Meter, we chose Van Meter #1 because they're one of the, there's 6 districts in the state of Iowa that are members of Ed Leader 21, and they're all progressive districts like us. But they're smaller. Van Meter's smaller, the other districts are much larger, and at least in my eyes, sometimes it's easier to see, okay, what did they do and you can do this, versus what did this giant district do and how do you funnel that down? So we're starting there, and we've been in contact with other districts too, but this just happened to be, and I was like, oh, that's perfect to see kind of how are they rolling that out.
The thing that it allows us to do is, you know, we talk about going from good to great, and I'm not trying to brag or anything like that, but I think that's what we look at. We talk about that in our administrative meetings. And one of the things that we looked at when we looked at Ed Leader 21 is the fact that we wanted to make sure that we were going to make a difference, and we were going to have a strategic plan that we could make a difference with, and that would be what is the profile of a graduate. Like Carrie said, there are some big schools and very big schools that are in that, but I think that these are very progressive schools that are in that. If you had a chance to see the one from Van Meter, I bet that was very interesting.
It was. I was, you know, I'm still new and trying to absorb it all, but that's when I came back and I mentioned to John, like, the one thing that I took out of it, there was so much from maybe a school district perspective, and like you said, funneling it down, but something that has stuck with me since then was this idea of this profile, almost like a North Star. You know, like,
vision, right?
It's your North Star, and so sometimes it's easy to get down a little far into the weeds or something like that, but this was this idea that, like, as a school board to say, that's kind of our North Star, and if we can kind of just keep our eye on that, it will be hard to go wrong, or, you know, harder to go wrong, I don't know what you say, but it did stick with me, and I thought, wow. So I'm so excited that you're going and to see what that's like. Well, if there's any questions that,
you can go on the Ed Leader 21 website. I don't know how much you can see without a password, but if there's anything that you want to know about, just ask, because what they have is they have a 3-year roadmap for a district. And they have a lot of the tools that we can use, but you have to use the tools. You have to do the heavy lifting. They've given you this, you've got the pieces, but then what the district does to put those into place, because what each district needs and the makeup of a community is different as to how they're going to go, what route they're going to take that way. But I would just take a look at it.
Yeah. I'd encourage you, Carrie, is if after you and Vic go down there, you say, man, this is straight on to engage Brian, heads that up for the board, and so we can engage him with their board members and see what that looks like, and then the rest of us board members can get involved with that as we say, man, that's the direction we want to go, we like it, and then we can customize that for whatever you need for board participation.
No, that sounds good, because actually when you look at what that plan looks like, the board is a big part of that.
Yeah, right. And then that gets us synced up on vision, you know, we'll be like, we know you guys like that vision, so then now we can come up and help you make that vision happen, get you the resources that you need to make it happen. So kind of just keep us in the loop as you see that, gosh, we like that, and then we'll get behind you and help get you the resources you need to make it happen.
We'll do that.
Awesome.
Just one other thing as far as announcements or celebrations. We did have our first forum the other night. Small crowd, but good questions from the people that were there. The communications group has just done an outstanding job. I don't know if you've gone to our website and looked at that, but if you go to district and then you look at, is it vote April 3rd or whatever, there's so much information there. I mean, it's outstanding. The things that I want to make you aware of is we'll have another one, I believe it's March 20th, that will be the next one. Is that the right date? Check me on that.
Yep.
And that's 7 o'clock, I believe. That'll be in the auditorium. The things that are happening also, we talked, if you were there or heard anything about what we were talking about, we will go out and talk to any groups that want to listen to what we have to say, because our job is to put the facts out there and have people understand what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. So I know that there's different groups that have scheduled different things, and there's different groups that will be coming up for different things. So if you know a group that's out there and they would like to see, and it doesn't have to be a big group, it could be a small group or whatever, we want to make sure that they understand what it is that we're doing so that we get the word out. But again, I don't know, there's a place on there that they can ask questions and things like that. We haven't had a lot of questions or anything, but just to say to people, we're there to, if you have any questions, to answer.
I was gonna ask, how does that work? So does somebody monitor that, like that? I went out to the site and I saw that, and there was like a little form you could fill out.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the vote yes, or do you guys here at the school, or who monitors that?
I guess.
Oh, cool. But you haven't gotten very many, you said, yet? You haven't gotten very many questions that route?
No, the forum, there were
The forum.
questions, and then
Yep.
when
We did one at
Gilbert,
at Gilbert Lutheran Church
Yeah.
too.
great questions
Yeah.
there.
Carrie
But
and I are
no
good.
questions have been submitted on the
Oh, got it.
Mm-hmm.
50 plus via the website.
My people.
That's cool.
Just wait.
Sam Stagg from
Somebody
HALA
better
had
use something.
great compliments for your guys on the communication committee on the website. He said what you guys had on the website was outstanding, and said it was really good, so I wanted to put that out there, that great job on putting that together on the communications committee.
They'll have a presence at the Rock Hop this Saturday. I know that. I just talked to a couple different people there. That's more of the Vote Yes committee at that.
Yep.
And then they will also have a presence at the joint meeting between the Ames Chamber and the Executive Committee. Ames had a shot at doing some of their information on it, which is great. And we now have a shot at putting some of that information out there too. So a lot of things are happening there.
Good.
I appreciate these sort of initiatives that are shared between a bunch of patrons and staff, and I just like it when there's this intense partnership. And Amy, you've done a really good job getting everyone together and contributing. No one's just sitting at that table listening. Everyone has ideas and are talking and are excited about it. I really like that. Good work.
It's been fun meeting.
Yeah.
And any other announcements or celebrations? Anybody else have anything they would like to talk about?
Final assessments were last week.
Oh, okay.
Just went off without a hitch. Everything went pretty smooth. Got some makeups to do yet, but it's always nice to get that done. Big undertaking for Jen Stormeyer organized it. She did a wonderful job.
Didn't have to worry about anybody getting spring fever this year.
Yeah, it'll be nice to have all the makeup done and everything.
Yeah. Okay, board reports. What do you like to talk about?
Well, I got my thing on the screen, and then sorry, Kim.
Nope.
Do you want to go first?
I'm further down.
Oh, amazing. Okay, cool. Well, hey, I just want to talk about this as a board, with anybody else who's out there on the internet as well. So, one of the things that John has asked me to do is take some of the work that we've done over the last few years around assessing our superintendent. And again, what I'm talking about is setting policy. I'm not talking about Lindsay. I want to be really clear about that. While he is our superintendent now, this is supposed to be a lasting policy that extends beyond us here at the board table and beyond Lindsay and whatever that looks like for years to come. And so John has sort of tasked me with this, and I suckered Deb into helping me out with this because she's real smart.
Because I'm new, that's why.
That's what I meant, yes. And so, I'm second newest here, that's why I got suckered into this part. And so what we decided to do is set out and look at a bunch of different districts and what they're doing. And again, I think looking even at what Carrie was saying around this ed leader and this idea of building some support into the board table with the superintendent, that's the whole process is we only have one employee we're responsible for, and that's Lindsay. So how do we support him? And not only the current thing he's doing in this school, but even in a career sense, right? So that's the goal of all of this. And so what I set out to do is sort of look at all these things that are going on while still respecting the ISB and the 6 standards and all of that, and kind of layering on. So we have this little, like, this is a big document that's 10 plus pages. It's sort of a new way to evaluate with a little introduction here. You can skip the next one. I'm just going to, or you can skip to the next slide. Right, these are the main ideas in this sentence, or in this paragraph, sorry. Is we want to make sure that we define and clarify expectations between us and the superintendent. Next one. Starts at bunch. We want to make sure that we are inspiring continued growth of a superintendent. Next one. That, again, we're defining expectation, increasing the quality of our communication, and prioritizing goals, right? We're building a shared vision together. That's the whole point of this thing. You can go to the next one, sorry, it's a whole bunch. And I want to make sure that it's high quality, ethical, that it has beliefs, like strong support underneath all of this, that we feel good and are operating with integrity, right? Like, as we've sort of like moved and walked into this position, we've had these 6 standards, and then we had this other document, and there was a really difficult time merging those together in a way that was universal for a lasting way for Gilbert. It was kind of addressing specific stuff. So try to kind of take some of the good stuff of that, the good stuff of other districts, and put it all into one document. Sorry, next one. So why do we create our own document? For all those reasons, and, next slide, I want to make sure that we don't just issue a pass-fail. We don't give that to our students of like, hey, yes, you passed or you failed. What we're trying to do is increase the quality of their learning and their understanding of where they're at, and push them from, like Lindsay continues to say, good to great. We don't want to just say, hey, you didn't fail this time. Awesome, buddy. No, we're trying to increase the quality of that. So that's what we want in our evaluation process as well. Next one. So removing this binary pass-fail result and recognizing what he's done, or what any superintendent has done, and then also making sure that we continue to increase the quality, the bar of where we're going, right? Like, just like anybody here who has a job, hopefully none of us are stagnant, that we're growing and improving, and we want to recognize that and continue to push on that as a school board. Next one, these are a lot of words. We're going to issue the same 6 criteria. Next one, and we're going to improve the rating system for pass-fail to the next one. I'm so good at this, right? So we took the scale to New York. Sorry, normally I'm controlling it, now I have to say next one. So we took what, I looked at the New York school board, what they were doing, and they had this scale called HEDI, Heidi, or however you want to say it. And instead of pass-fail, we're calling it highly effective, effective, developing, and ineffective. Ineffective would essentially be, well, we got to make some serious changes. Developing meaning, yes, we're seeing improvements and growth, that's cool. Effective meaning you're there and let's keep going, and highly effective is sort of this outstanding level. And so if you go to the next one, I think I have a sample. So here's one of the 6 standards. Standard 1, shared vision. We set some criteria out. And again, there's one of these for every 6 standards. And what we've done here, and with Deb's help, is we've sort of codified what makes up this in our district. Again, not in a right now way, but in sort of this normative, long-term sense. And then what we're going to ask every board member to do is, coming into the criteria session when those happen, is then to kind of rate and give commentary on why we're putting sort of those checks or those evaluations against each of those things. So we have 6 standards, and each one has, say, 5 or 6 subpoints. So we're getting some granularity in terms of feedback for our superintendent. And at the end of this, I'm sorry, I don't have this on the slide, is sort of a section that I'm going to ask for every single person to say, what would it take to improve on this thing? What's a notable win, and then what would it take to kind of move the marks up all across the board? The goal is not just to, hey, great, you're satisfactory or you're failing, but to really say, what's next? What does it look like for that next step? And so to look at sort of this recognition of what you're doing here at the same level of saying, that's great, how can you improve, right? Like, we always want to be pushing forward on what we can do in the least. So what I don't want to do is have it be contentious or punitive or any of those things that I'm looking at my own reviews, how I've been reviewed from my boss and how I review my coworkers, is always sort of this aspirational, what's next for everybody here, right? Because honestly, if we said fail, we just fire somebody, right? And I think like that's not what we're talking about in an evaluation process. So the next thing, like my goal is to finish up. There's a few sections I need to finish here. Roll this out in like honestly by the end of the week, so that Lindsay has a copy of it. There's no mystery to it. Us as a board have a copy of it. But what, in sort of this sense, the one thing I want us as a board, and why are we having this here when there's no audience or anything like that? Because this is the time for us to talk about it as a board here. I didn't know Tyler wasn't going to be here, but I want us to feel really good that we're going to give whoever our superintendent is, Lindsay or somebody else, whoever's sitting at this table or not, to have a process that is pushing for the best we can do with this district. And so the one piece of sort of guidance that I'm looking for you all to kind of inform and give me is, I'm thinking that we all go back in the next couple of weeks, or I should say weeks before an evaluation happens, that we think about this, we sort of fill out this form individually, and that we bring it to any evaluation process ready for discussion. That, again, we would give Lindsay an advance copy of kind of how we're thinking about things, not as a collective, but as individuals, and then we kind of talk through that as an evaluation process whenever that would happen, right, using a normal closed board session. That's my thought. Now, coming out of any of these evaluations, we have contract decisions to make. Which I don't have any like new standard or codified way to do that, because at the end we all have individual votes on those things. And again, I'm not talking about any evaluation now, but I just want to set expectations that whenever we end up doing Lindsay's evaluation process, that we would all have time to sit and think on these things, fill these out, give Lindsay, you know, a day or 2 or 3 days with sort of how we're thinking about it, and then get together and have a really rich discussion around recognizing successes, and then also talking about sort of like future enhancements, next step stuff in the most sort of like partnered, supporting way that we can think about. So that's my goal out of this process. This is significantly different than the last 2, 3 sessions, 4, 5, 6 sessions I've been a part of on this thing. And so I'd like to have discussion on this. And my request to you all is, let's iterate on this, right? Like, this doesn't have to be perfect round 1, but I think this is a notable improvement from where we've been. That was a lot of talking, sorry.
Yeah, one question I have, Brian, that I want to make sure of is do we need a practice round with the first time? So, for example, with my board, I know exactly what my criteria are before I start the year. Is there anything in this that you'd be like, gosh, it's not a fair shake to Lindsay to say, okay, 2 weeks out, we're you know, asking maybe different questions than that you had at the beginning of the year, and I just want to make sure that there may be, hey, this is practice this year to set up expectations for the next year. I just want to make sure that we're fair in thinking of any time we change. And I get the overall criteria is the same, but to the extent that there's any new things in there that would be the first time Lindsay's seeing them, I don't think it's a fair shake to ask him 2 weeks out. But I do think, you know, saying what your plans are over the course of 2018 to make that 2018, 2019 to make this happen is fair. But that we would have to have those all tagged, that you know, Lindsay, that this is really that we're going to be asking you for those thoughts. And if 2 weeks isn't enough, that it's a fair shake to say, you know what, I need more time to think about that, because that involves a lot more than I want to perhaps commit to at that time. Or maybe at that review it's something like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. I need to flush it out with my administrative team before I commit to that. But hey, I'll get back to you in June and kind of lay the groundwork with what I see is, and I see it tying in very much so into the Ed Leader 21. It's the idea of we're going to be asking, you know, where's the vision and what's that look like? And so this is all going to tie together with the idea of what you guys find out at Van Meter. Lindsay, does that look like what you think you want it to be? And then is that what you want to tie the board in? And then all of a sudden we're all clicking on the same page. So that, you know, just keep that all in mind as board members, that we want to make sure that we don't we don't make
no surprises, right?
Too quick on the implementation. That would be the only thing.
That's very fair. And the only thought I had on it, because I think that's an excellent point, John, is this is a true return to the 6 standards, where I think we've drifted in a bit in the past. This just brings some specificity in sort of how we're thinking about those 6 standards, and that's very fair, because there are new words, even as we're thinking about like the 6 standards, they are some new words. So I guess maybe that to your point, like in us as a board, thinking about running through this process for the first time, let's be clear in what we're looking for, but also respectful that this might be some new stuff. Is that? And you and I can talk privately too on some of these things. Lindsay, I don't want to put you on the spot here.
Fine.
I appreciate the return to the standards, and I think, my sense is that I'd love for you to get a full copy and to say, hey, I'm all game.
Yes.
I appreciate that you're giving us choices, because there are a lot of times throughout my entire history on the board where I felt like, I know that there's an example that I want to put down to represent this standard, and you've given us options, specifically, you know, in collaboration, how is he, and you've given us trigger points, or me, anyway, because I don't keep significant records. I remember, and I can trigger, but I can't always go back and find the point I want. And I appreciate just taking standards and breaking them down a little bit tighter than the old format.
I think that's really interesting, Kim, because one of the things is like, right, the way that we sort of signal to Lindsay in a very sort of public sense is renewing a contract or not renewing a contract, and that is binary. But when we're looking at an individual and their growth and what we're asking for and building a shared support kind of vision together, this sort of like matrixed version of that gives a lot more clarity and specificity than I think the public ways that we've kind of like indicated those things in the past.
Yep.
So yeah, like Lindsay, we can pair up sometime later this week, and we can maybe we just spend an hour together, kind of going through the full document. You'd be like, you know what, this kind of feels weird, or like this is brand new, so and we can work through that.
I appreciate that.
I do, one thing, this does kind of remind me of something that we do as well, where I work, and it, you know, they put a big emphasis on the, how do you use this as an experience where you're learning and developing, and it's a conversation, right? One thing that I like specifically about this is that making sure that we give that information to Lindsay or to ahead of time.
Yes.
Because I think then, like, we do this as well where I work, and it's important because as someone who's receiving the feedback, you get a chance to look at it, and I think it can just make for more thoughtful conversation, right? You're not reading it for the first time in front of people.
That emotional sort of reaction,
Yeah.
I can't believe this happened, as opposed to, let me really think about that. Is that, maybe that's hard to hear, but that's good, or I can't believe I'm getting recognized for this thing.
Yeah. Either way. So I know at work, I appreciate that, and I hope that that's something that is beneficial here. I think that's important.
And the one thing I do want to add is to make clear that we've always used those 6 standards, and part of that 6 standards was they were too general, so then we said, well, let's break them down into more specific, and then we will. So I just want to make sure
I think
that we've always used those 6 standards and have done the evaluation based on those 6 standards. So I just
These
want to
are
make sure
pretty close to what's written there too. I mean,
Yes.
I know that
We
you said there's
modifications.
some modifications, but there's a lot of this that is really truly the wording from it. I think that you've taken care to make it maybe more readable and stuff, but.
And I think, again, like, looking at where we've come in the last couple of years, like, we're continuing to iterate on this, right? We want the highest quality. We want to go from good to great, and, like, even with our processes around this, like, here's our kind of second big attempt at this, and I suspect that we're going to continue to refine this as time goes on, but trying to, you know, build that foundation that we're all really proud of.
No, I appreciate you guys taking the time to work on this. I think it's going to be a nice improvement. Any questions?
No, I appreciate their work on it.
Thanks, Deb.
Okay, so we're on to any other board reports anybody would like to discuss? So for new business, we have the construction manager versus general contractor. Lindsay, is there anything you'd like to open with on this?
The thing that I think that we've talked a little bit about in January, I think that we had some CMs come in and talk to us a little bit. We've got some more information from them. We've also been approached by a GC just to kind of make sure we understand how both of them work. And I think that as we had an opportunity to talk a little bit about this, my opinion would be it would be good for us to take a work session, probably bring a GC in to talk about that. Maybe we, you know, I got an email and some things that we talked about today. Maybe we have, I don't know if we've narrowed down from our CM instruction or our CM process, but I think it's important that we do our due diligence, and I think that's the kind of the conversation that we had the other day for our patrons to say, we've looked at this model and we've looked at this model. How will it best fit our overall process. We know that we got a lot of projects. I mean, that's you know, hopefully not an issue. But the fact of it is I think that they're so much different that it would do us good to go ahead and have a work session. So I think what we have is, and I'm not trying to steal your thunder here, but I think what we have is we had some dates, is that right, where we had some people that, or some groups that we could go ahead and put together. Now, I was trying to look at it, and first of all, HALA I think is important. I think that we need to have HALA. I don't know if Sam and Art will be here, but I know Sam will, and we have the dates that they're available. I think it's important that we look at all of you as far as board members when your availability is. And some of you, I have availability. Some of you, I've just shot out some information in the school board update and talking about that. And then we did have an opportunity to talk to a GC. I got some dates when a GC can come in and talk to us. Not necessarily, I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand the concept. Deb, wouldn't you say that from our meeting?
Right, like for me, I thought, and Tyler was there too, and we were all in agreement that we thought this would be a good discussion. It's really more the pros and cons of GC versus CM, and not necessarily this CM versus this, you know.
Right.
It was more the idea, and this person that came to us, I was very thankful because they just showed some, and they admitted some of the pros of CM and some things that might be a little trickier. It's just a matter of like having that knowledge and then of both sides, and then just making like a more educated decision, I guess, about it. It's not like about which GC or which construction manager, but more just the two concepts. They also mentioned that there's like there's different types of CM work, you know, like some might be just advisory, some might be kind of all in. It was informative, and I thought, Tyler, we all just sat afterwards and thought, boy, this would be a good discussion, just to make sure, right, that we're proceeding down. That this whole chunk of the work just cuts down from that budget, right? The 14 million that we're asking for. What we pick will really decide how much we have for actual projects. So it was an important one.
We thought it was important that you guys have a chance to hear. We had a little bit of a chance to hear it, but as she said, you know, the more money that we spend on some of these things, the less we have available for possibly for those projects. And that's not to say that we're going to go willy-nilly and spend things crazy, but just to understand the process between the two, I think is important.
I think there were some, like, I don't want to say surprises because I'm new on both sides, you know, I'm just learning, but there was just perspective that I think everybody would value, would want to hear, and then make a decision after that. Mm-hmm. Maybe in the end it doesn't change anything, but at least we've heard it, you know, and we can't say, oh, gee, I didn't know that. Maybe I would have thought differently, so.
So as we're trying to look at things, I want to try to look at a date where it can work for the majority of our group here, where it can work for the GC, where it can work for the for HALA as far as the architect. And one of the things that I got from Tyler on an email, and I think John and I talked about today, I don't know, maybe do we call in the CM at, you know, at the same, sometimes it gets so confusing because we had 3 CMs talk to us and they were all a little bit different. We had questions on just about at least 2 out of the 3, just different qualifiers. And so that's why I wanted to see if there's a date coming up. I know that you have super busy schedules, and my question is, if you look at that, is there a date coming up that could be a possibility of that we could look at? If you look at your calendars or anything like that.
Yeah. Is there one that's consistent amongst the 3 that have replied?
Oh dear.
Looks like Thursday the 15th. Tyler is going to be traveling back, pending.
The 21st was what was it? Back to school. Did I not? Oh.
Right. 15th there. 15th for Tyler. 15th is where
The 15th is 20.
Yes.
Nope, not the
15th?
21st.
No, it was there. You had the 15th there on that last one.
Yeah, 15th works.
Does that work for HALA too?
Yeah, what about later? Thursday, 22nd? Is that not on Curtis's?
Thursday, the 22nd, not on Tyler. They don't go into March, so.
We were trying to get it done sooner rather than later, don't you think, Deb?
I don't
When we had
have,
that meeting?
March 1st is another option, but Hala doesn't have anything for March 1st. But the other two have March 1st.
Could you,
Check on that.
So far away.
The only date that didn't work for me was the 21st, but even that, if everybody else can meet that day, I can make it work. It just wasn't ideal. You didn't see it on.
I checked with him last night and he was available.
He was?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
My team.
Are you good with if we take that date, Deb, just 'cause of
Yeah,
work?
I just have to find a replacement. It's a,
The 21st, that is?
I'm a confirmation teacher,
Oh, okay.
so.
That would be on a Wednesday, right?
work for you?
Yeah,
February 21st?
I'm putting it on right now.
What if we did it, or what time do you,
Yeah, 'cause
At
could we
seven.
do it earlier?
I do it at 7:15 is when
Right, so, but like,
Could
could
it like
we,
four?
since we're just
Yeah.
visiting with one group, could
Could
we
they
maybe
do it
meet
before
at 5
you-
or 5:30?
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Oh,
so if
sure,
we move it
yeah.
ahead.
But I don't wanna make this about, I can make it.
It's already
other
about you,
arrangements.
let's just do it.
Okay,
I'm
let's
just
do
kidding.
No.
Yeah.
4 to
Well,
6, I feel
no,
like even
I
by 4 to
think
6.
Yeah,
I
if
think
we
it's
could be
kinda
done
good to
at,
be a
like-
little time bound anyway.
Yeah, if we could be done by like 7:15, I can, that works totally for me.
And if it's just a back and forth conversation rather than 3 different groups and question and answer
Yeah, it
with each
should
of them,
go a
it should
little
go
quicker,
quickly.
because
You think if we wanna-
we're really talking about the difference between construction management and
And GC.
general contracting, so it's
Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah,
Let's say the 21st, 5?
That's what I was
sure,
wondering.
Okay.
that's perfect.
Okay.
That'd be great, thank you.
Now, do you want to have, how should I ask this? Do you want to have a CM in here also?
I think
Or
we
do
should.
you- yeah.
I think it
At
would
the
be
same
good.
time?
Later, I mean, they wouldn't be
One
at the
or two.
same time, it's staggered, we'd have one first and then the second would,
Just still for
15 minutes in
information
between.
purposes?
Mhm.
You have your data information from your CMs, right?
Yeah.
So, do you want,
You want the general contractor first?
Mm-mm.
No?
I don't,
I don't think.
Well,
it-
my opinion is that they've already told us what they can do for us.
Okay.
I'd like an opportunity to ask a GC, what they feel about some of the different,
yeah.
not specifically about this group, but I have a sense of what the construction manager's gonna do for us already, just
Okay.
based on their presentation.
Mhm.
So I'd like to hear what the general contractor has to say. And maybe it'll bring up some questions for the contract manager that I might not have. I already asked those when they met with us the first time.
I think
Does that
like
make sense?
Yeah, that was my experience too. Like, I think it would be helpful to have the general contractor first, or maybe that different perspective, because although we have met with the CMs, like you might ask something different. I have one question that's different that I would have never thought to ask the CM.
Yeah, I'd like to
You
kind
know.
of compare and
Yeah.
contrast them and hear.
If I had a
Together.
preference, I would think it would be helpful to do the GC first, and then.
Yeah.
So let's do a GC at 5 on the 21st,
Yeah,
and then do we bring in a CM?
6.
Does that sound okay?
Sure.
And then
just pick one local, just pick one
Well,
local one,
yeah.
so that we
I
can
think
just,
we pick the low.
don't have to make
I
us
kinda-
really travel or
Does
something.
that kind of give you an idea?
It does
And
something, but-
then what we'll do is we'll come out of that work session with an agenda item and we can or cannot, make a decision on what we're gonna do that night, depending on the information we get. How's that sound?
The only thing I'll have to check on was if we can, I think I told them 6 o'clock, I think if we can move it up to 5, then we're good. We get everyone in and go with it.
Yeah,
I have a question. Action item, possible action item, when? At the March? Or at
Well, I
March
guess we
meeting?
could do it either, or we could do it that night. What do you guys wanna do? Do you wanna wait till March?
Is there any benefit to them knowing our decision 2 weeks before they would otherwise?
I don't think so.
I
think
mean,
it's
would they
just
be
a
doing
preference item.
anything for us?
No, I wouldn't think so.
No, I think March is plenty good, so.
Because the only
That's
thing
the
we have in the
19th.
hopper is
We
the
just-
bond is already being worked on, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll just
Action
have a work
March.
session and we'll have the action item in March.
19th.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for everyone being flexible there.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good. And so we'd have a 5 o'clock start then.
Yep.
Mhm.
That'd be good. Okay, So we need to approve a resolution to set a public hearing for the easement on the, who's that, was Century 21? or
CenturyLink.
CenturyLink.
Yep, and what you're doing is whenever you have a change in an easement like this, you have to have a public hearing. So what we're requesting from you, and Gail, jump in if I have anything different than this, is the fact that we need to go ahead and put on our agenda for the 19th of March at 6 o'clock. We will have a public hearing about the easement and how that will change.
Okay. So you're giving me permission to put it in the paper and notify the public, and then you have to approve it or have the hearing at 6 p.m. on the 19th.
And
That's a
this-
separate meeting, like that's just that.
No,
Kinda
just
like
like
what we
tonight.
did.
tonight's
Yeah.
thing was about the.
You just do it like early on.
Oh,
But
gotcha.
just
I was like,
open up
that's
with
what
it. Is there any,
I didn't know that's
Yes, we
what that was.
try
you
to
know,
find a
any
crowd.
pros,
Yeah.
cons,
Got it.
any objections? Because we're dealing with public property.
Yep.
You know,
Makes
the public
sense.
owns our property, so we have to allow them.
You want, need a motion to approve that
Yes.
resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
That's okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Hand gestures don't count.
All opposed? We stand approved. Okay, the school calendar, I'd entertain a motion to approve the school calendar.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Stands approved. And entertain a motion to approve the services contract with Street Arts LLC from June 1st, 2018 to May 31st, 2020.
Wow.
I liked the old English. No.
Yeah, I almost want to reject it just because the language.
It was hard. It was, it was
Sorry, that's a
tricky to
joke.
get through.
They do use some of our people, and I did run it by them as far as they didn't have really anything that they thought was too different. This company has bought out the one, was it Drive Tech? Is that what we used to have? I had to look.
Sounds
They bought that group out, and there's another one I think that they bought out. So we have worked, I think, 1 year with them. So
Did we like supplement? One thing I was reading through, it had like costs, you know, per student, and then there was a like a free. I
Yeah,
assume that there would be, you know, we could help out with some of those.
yeah, we have a waiver.
Oh,
Because we have free and reduced, if you qualify for free and reduced, that also blankets other fees. And so they acknowledge that and they respect that. So they work with us on that.
Do you remember the Scripps program that we used to have?
We still have one.
it, Scripps program.
It's,
Can-
yeah, the
it's not
foundation took
called
it over.
that. Yeah.
mhm.
Can those funds be used and stuff for this program, or since it's an outside?
I
vendor?
believe that's what it was, since the foundation, I hate to speak on behalf of the
Oh.
foundation because
Yeah.
the money went over to them and they're handling that funding.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that, I think in the past that was that was done that way, but I really won't
Have
have to
to
speak
verify.
on
Okay.
their behalf, yeah.
No, I don't.
So entertain a motion to approve the service agreement.
I forgot what I was supposed to say. So moved.
Doing great. I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor,
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Stands approved. 2018-2019 budget information.
Okay,
Yes.
here's a preliminary.
Very well done.
Awesome, yeah.
So, our goal is to achieve 12% solvency by 2020. This is part of the, our goal is to have a levy of $18.90. And so, as you can see on the left side is our current budget, dollars generated versus the upcoming fiscal year 19, which is a 1% SSA. It sure sounds like it's going to be 1%. I know they've linked some transportation equity things, but it sounds like it's going to be 1%. Hopefully 1.5. That's what the governor wants. But so this is based on a 1% SSA. And so with that, dropout is a calculation of student enrollment, and then cash reserves this is everything you've approved to this date. I should be over here because this is already done over here on the fiscal year. So everything, if you remember, the board action has taken the special ed deficit, September, on-time funding for increased enrollment, and then English language. There was opportunity to approve that. And so all of those was the SBRC cash reserve, which was $954,507. Last year we had a $100,000 cash reserve of just extra. And what we need to do to accomplish the 12% solvency by 2020 is to, while we can cash reserve, we need to. And so basically this other cash reserve of $375, by the time I put the management of the dollar amount is a little bit less than we did for last year. It was $450. We decided work comp went down because we changed companies, so we really only need to do $315, and we don't have as many retirees that we have, so we have some balance of funds. We were able to drive up that cash reserve more to get the to achieve the 1890. So that's what we want to do, because as our cash gets better, our ability to do that will go away. So while we can, we need to maximize that. And so then the voted PEPAL, the regular or instructional support is basically also a funding formula. Management is the insurance and district insurance and early retirement, our regular PEPAL, voted PEPAL. These two as basically just a reflection of the increase of evaluation, because that's a flat rate. Debt service is the same way. And debt service, it doesn't matter at this point that, you know, hopefully our bond passes on April 3rd, but when we go into doing our budget has to be approved April 15th. Bond is April 3rd. So what we'll do is we'll put in that we're going to prepay debt, because of the timing of selling things and getting it in by April 15th. We're just going to make sure we have 405, and we'll put it as like prepaid bonds, or we may be issuing bonds later on. But as long as we have it at 405, we'll have the funds to do whatever we need to do. And then here are the levies. And so our ultimate goal is 1890, and we are pretty dang close to what we were last year by doing all this. And the tax bill valuation is basically what's allowed us to do what we have above. And the what we want to make sure to achieve the total levy of 1890, things do change. Some of the figures are not into the management, the Department of Management, until later on, like sales tax, things like that. But as long as we publish on April 15th that we have a maximum levy of 1890, we can't go back and ask for more, but we can always reduce it. So as long as we have our goal, then that can be our maximum levy. We can never ask for more after April 15th, but we can always reduce it down. And what we would do is we'd change something above, but we'd keep it at 1890. But this is just preliminary. This is as of Friday. I had a budget workshop over the phone. We didn't travel to Marshalltown, and so I was able to get some of this together for our board meeting tonight. So
yeah, I really like that report.
The words are easy to read.
It's a summary.
I'm still working on the content, but I mean, it's very, I do like
it. But actually a budget, I mean, there is so much information, but this is the important things that you as a board will use, and you'll be familiar with it. Everything in there, all that detail, it comes together as a summary of this is really what you need to know as a board. And you do make decisions along the way, like the SBRC. You've been doing that along the way as those opportunities come and they arrive. Now we actually build it into the budget.
Do we firm that up in March or April then? What do we usually do?
The April 15th, I believe, the second meeting in April, is it like the 11th or something? I'm not sure, but we'll actually have the budget hearing. In March, we'll approve to have a budget hearing, just like we did for the easement. And then I have to publish in the paper. We'll hold it at the second meeting in April, because I know it's before the 15th.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions for Gail on the budget numbers? Okay, this is appoint representative for the Story County Conference Board.
Thanks, John.
Deb, I think that you volunteered for the one for the city, didn't you?
Yeah, honestly, I don't really know what this is.
I'll tell you what this one, Wayne Swickerath, is that name ring a bell to you? No, that's what I bet. He said that he contacted me and gave me some information. He said that I'm contacting you concerning the Gilbert School District having a representative on the Story County Conference Board. The Conference Board is a governing unit which oversees the budgeting process of the County Auditor's Office. Each school district is entitled to have a representative on the board along with the county mayors and the Board of Supervisors. This board typically meets twice, 2 times a year, February and March, for the budgeting process. The conference board meets at the County Administration Building in Nevada. So he just noticed that I think Sean was our representative for this, had been on there for a while. He said, I noticed that you need to have a new rep. And so I said, well, we'll put it on our board agenda and see who would like to.
Do they have dates for the meeting chosen?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you could just wing it, that if it works for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. Unless you want it.
Oh, no, I was trying to be still.
No eye contact.
John, appointing Cam?
Huh?
John, are you appointing Cam?
No, she's volunteering.
You're volunteering, okay.
Well, thank you for doing that, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Policy meetings will be thrilling.
I know, right?
This is our policy meetings.
We're gonna get swamped.
Okay.
700 to review in 1 night.
No, right?
Do we, you need anything other
No,
than just
no.
a general consensus on that? District communication, anything?
Well, Kim, did you?
Yep.
Yeah, this is
Okay,
Kim.
okay, yeah.
Okay.
I think we just have, okay, we have this, Kim.
Yep.
And
Okay.
then I have the email that you sent me today.
Okay, we'll get there.
We have this.
You want the bullet points first, or you want this?
I do. Well, I just wanted to preface my comments at last board meeting. I think that I probably should have had a little note card rather than just going with the flow. My goal is to make communication between the board and our certified and support staff and our parents and patrons better. And I certainly probably didn't sound like that when I was talking last time. I do have great value in the process and the chain of communication that Lindsay put together for us. I think that I'm just going to share that Carrie and Lindsay facilitated a really excellent meeting with a group of parents just to talk about some things in general, and I was able to watch, and I think good things happen when people get together and talk. And I think I would like us to get into a position where we as a district, whether it's a board member or an administrator or a teacher, we're communicating more and we're putting things out ahead of time and on an ongoing basis. We're kind of thinking, I wonder if people would like to talk about this, or I wonder, you know, I had a question about this. Do you think everybody would benefit from that conversation? So I've done a couple of things, and first and foremost, there's a process. I asked Stacy to help me because she is the queen of Google Docs. And every time I think of something, she's like, well, here, look, and it's there. So I shot her an email, and Gail, this would be the doc that I shared with you and Lindsay today on your email.
Okay.
As board members, we have an opportunity to talk to people, whether it's a planned conversation or a requested meeting, or sometimes just sitting at a football game and somebody says, hey, tell me more about this. And a lot of times those impromptu conversations bring up some really awesome ideas or questions. The problem is by the time the football game is over and Monday comes, I forget to send an email. I forget to talk to the people that I should have talked to. And so what I asked Stacy to create for me is a quick form where I can have a conversation, I can sit down, I can click, you know, so Kim Mosman, if you just want to click it, you can. So I had this conversation.
You're editing the form, not filling it out.
Oh, help me.
Put the live up in the corner.
Oop, keep going up, I think, right? Yeah.
Up top. Keep going. Up.
The eyeball thing?
Alright.
Eyeball?
Yeah, click the eyeball.
Now would be live.
Okay,
Oh.
okay, so if you click my name, I had a conversation with, I had it today, so you can just fill it in. Who was I talking to? I talked to Deb Fordall.
This is a pretend
This
thing.
out.
It is, it's a, no, yeah, it's a pretend thing.
It's not
It
coordinated.
No. Purpose of conversation, questions about the bus route.
Doing a great job. I saw watching you typing.
Mm-hmm.
Super
the worst.
fast.
Nothing like a little bit of pressure.
Okay. And then next steps, forwarded Deb's concerns to Lindsay and Bruce.
I don't have any problem.
I know,
Bus route, okay.
It's
Why
hiding.
are you a bus route hater?
Yeah, just an example.
What's up with that 2-hour bus delay though? Let's talk about
Okay, I do have a concern.
I didn't say concerns. Okay, so then you hit
Thanks a
submit.
lot.
Okay?
What is that? Okay.
I just need to edit it
Oh, okay.
Okay, and so then if I could get into my email, you're going to see this great little form. And it comes to me, and Stacy's got it set so that it will just send it to all of you. Boom, it's done. And I sent Gail a copy of the form that I received when Stacy and I played that game on Friday.
This?
Nope. I sent you a picture on my email.
Oh.
Or
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Sorry, I just don't know how to go live here. Second one, yep. And there was a picture. Okay, so that's what I got in my email when Stacy and I pretended that last activity.
Hopefully this works.
I know, right? So,
Pretend that many
I
times.
think there's a lot of times that I want to share things with all of us. I think we have many opportunities with the long-range plan coming into play and the bond potentially and stuff, where people are going to have questions. Maybe I just don't want to wait till a board meeting to share with you, but this format allows me to share a conversation I had, who I sent it to for further work or, to get back to the patron. And it doesn't allow us to have a conversation. It's like open meeting law, super friendly, because we're never going to have a conversation back and forth. I just simply share it with you. It's something I'd like you other board members to consider, and if you like it as much as I like the idea of being able to share that quickly with one another, then I'll ask Stacy to share with Gail and make it just a part of something you can access. That was number one.
I like this a lot.
Seems really easy.
That was my hope. Because a lot of times I sit down and
One
my
question-
emails are long.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I don't intend for them to be long. I just want to explain everything. Well, this is just a snapshot, and I think it'll keep me focused. So
Who does this go to?
whoever we choose.
Whoever we choose.
Mhm.
to open.
Yep.
So since this was about a hypothetical bus route situation, nothing about this morning being 2 hours late. But anyway, that would go to Bruce and I too, so that we were involved in.
I don't know if we can choose that. I think what it does is it goes to the board members.
Okay.
And my thoughts are Lindsay should be copied in on it. And then Lindsay would be responsible for getting it to
Okay.
whoever else it
Just
needs
curious,
to be.
yeah, that's fine.
Because we wouldn't want anything coming from board members to
Right.
anyone other than Lindsay or whoever
Right.
Lindsay delegates it to
Yep.
handle on his behalf.
Yep.
And then what you'll have is you get this so that you know that somebody's filled out the form,
Mhm.
but then you'll have a spreadsheet of all the different ones, so if you need to, if as a board member you see a whole bunch of times that people are talking about a certain topic, then you could go back and that could be something John, decides to put on the agenda.
So
I get it. Okay.
I like this a lot. The thought I had is this is going to take a little discipline on us as board members, right? To be diligent, to remember to fill this out, or even just to be truthful to fill this out. I got approached by so-and-so and they're grumpy about a thing. We should probably think about as a board, what is our expectation? Do we want to commit to hey, every conversation we have, we should at least kind of capture it in summary?
I don't think every conversation
No,
would be a
I
mistake. I think it's a conversation that you
Needs
think
an
something
action.
productive can come out of.
Got it.
Or simply, we got a fire burning here, I just wanna make you aware of the fire.
Right.
You know, kind of thing, you
Yeah.
know, that kind of thing, but I don't, I think if it's just small talk.
Yeah.
Right,
I think it's that some other board member would find this of interest, or you think there's a reason why I wanna communicate to the rest of the board members, or, you know, just giving Lindsay the heads up of, hey, just heard this on the grapevine, don't want you to do anything with it, just want you to know about it, that kind of thing. But I think we have to use judgment just because there's too many things that are just, you know,
Yeah.
not interesting. I mean, I don't want to,
Sure.
you know.
Right.
So.
Yep. Just
So
notice.
would next,
Yeah.
like, would you use next steps to say, this is just FYI, or
Right.
is that what you would do? Because you were saying like
put,
some might just
you know,
be.
no follow-up, or,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
follow-up by if you want follow-up.
So and so,
you know,
whatever you did
that
with it. Okay.
kind of thing, but,
And-
and I guess the follow-up would be with whoever originated it,
Right.
you know, and then they decide the next step, so to the extent of I see something comes from Kim asks for follow-up from Lindsay, I'm gonna be like, okay, I just know that Kim's in the process of working out something with Lindsay, but it's just FYI for me.
Well, but then also, if the same person that talked to me talked to you,
Then we all know.
then we already know the ball's been put in Lindsay's court, and, you know,
Right.
everything's moving.
Yeah,
So-
and we could, you know, fill one out and say, hey, got the
Yep.
same
Yep.
message, stay with.
And we can add questions to this if you feel like a follow-up box is, you know, that next step is actually just in Word form, but we can add some options to that too, if you feel like having like FYI as a box needs attention, you know, to prioritize if you feel like that's something.
Yeah. If you go back to the original, the one you filled out, and then we'll be done with this, but if you go to responses.
This one?
Yep. See the response,
Oh,
right?
at the top,
Go
there's a little
Yep.
responses with the
Right,
two.
there's purple questions.
Oh, yeah.
Right there, yep. So you can see, just keep
Man,
scrolling
Kim's
down.
really using this form.
Yeah, I was
I
like,
know,
wait, what is that about?
So there is some.
And then if you click up to the top, go up to the top, that's by summary. If you click individual,
Right there.
and it's super
Left.
nice.
See
Yeah.
where it's,
Next
to summary.
Down.
yeah, like right here.
Oh,
there
right
you
here.
go.
Yep.
Okay.
I was gonna point at it. I don't.
It'll show each individual one that you have. We only have one. It'll eventually look like a spreadsheet if you have it.
It shows the individual who filled out the form? Is that
It
what you
shows
mean?
each form.
Oh,
it shows-
individual forms, okay, gotcha.
But if you Gail, do you see that little green square? There you go.
Ah.
Kicks it into a spreadsheet.
Do it, create it, let's go. So pumped.
It'll look like
Start.
super
Mhm.
nice.
This
It'll
is
look
awesome.
like
There we go.
Look at that.
Oh, okay.
Damn, it's noisy on this thing.
I know, right? So, anyway.
This is cool, I like it.
I think that it facilitates better communication amongst the 6 of us.
Yeah.
So,
And if people want us to like be anonymous or something, we can respect
Oh,
that.
sure.
It's more about the topic, I think, really, right, is what I heard
Yeah.
you say. Okay.
Sometimes you can, by doing it this way, things that are maybe small but could get bigger, we can avoid that getting bigger.
Yeah, because you can see they keep showing up on the spreadsheet.
Exactly.
Better,
Right.
Yeah.
better.
That's a good
talk
idea.
about it.
Yeah.
okay. Just in the interest of moving forward quickly, the next point that I wanted to bring up was creating a format for patrons to bring concerns to the board for consideration. And maybe they're uncomfortable presenting. So we had this form, and the people are supposed to fill out when they want to, it's a board agenda form, and if they want to come and speak to the board, they're supposed to fill this out and, submit it so that we know they're coming. The only thing I did was to tweak up at the top. The old form just simply says, action requested. I thought we could discuss adding discussion requested so that if maybe there's a group out there, and I'm going to pick on Business Horizons. I think it's an incredible thing, but say there were a group of 4 or 5 senior parents who have kids that leave campus and they're not going to be able to participate. Maybe they're thinking, what's the purpose of this? I'd really like to hear in board format. It's on TV, lots of people can listen. So administratively, you can provide us with information. We can have a brief discussion over something before it becomes bigger something. you know, and I don't anticipate that we'll get a lot of these, but it still gives people a format to hear what we have to say about something. Okay. Point 3, I'd really like us to finalize the date for a district communication night, or John, you had said you talked to the folks in Ames about what they do as far as
So
district patron communication.
So they have 2 board members that make themselves available, and then they meet with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. And so that's kind of their way. So I would just think of if we just had a rotation where we had 2 available board members with Lindsay and whoever else Lindsay would like to have available, then that, I just wanted, what I mentioned to Kim was just being mindful of our board members' time, because by the time we have our regular meeting, negotiation sessions, work sessions, I just want to be mindful of I definitely think the communications are important, but I also want to be mindful of we don't need all 5, and if we need all 5, then we can say, all right, we need all 5, and then we come to the board table and we talk about it. But to the extent of if we can just kind of have a rotation of making ourselves available to have coffee, to have communication night, whatever. I told Kim, whatever we get turnout is how we want to do it.
Yeah.
So if we have communication night and people aren't showing, well, we try coffee on Saturday morning. If that doesn't work, we try. We up the ante until we get some folks coming and frequency. You know, we certainly can have that discussion. Anyway, that's kind of the thought process.
I think it'd be nice to kick it all off with one full board communication night, like we used to, you know, just once a year. So if, you know, if there's a way that we can set a date, and I know that there are forums, I know that we've got, you know, evaluations and all these other things going on, but I thought it might be nice to do it before the school year ends. Kind of a wrap up, get feedback on things, and then when the next school year begins, to really try to implement this once a month, meet with, I mean, just a coffee time. And you're right, maybe it's a rotation, it's whoever's available, however it works, just to put ourselves out there.
That's good.
So would you like us to look for something maybe in April as far as a date that we could go ahead, and would this be separate from a regular meeting, is that correct?
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's just 2 hours where we devote, and I think it's really important, some of the feedback I've gotten from folks who have attended them in the past was that the last official one that we had was kind of muddled. We had said if, say we set the kids to start at 5, the kids are able to speak to us from 5 to 5:30. And if no kids show up, then we're gonna go right ahead with the next group. I think we need to honor a block of time, and if no one shows up, then we just have to chat amongst ourselves, because it should be a sacred space where, like, the kids can come in, there are no parents, there's no one else here. Same, the parents can come in and talk with no teachers. Teachers can come in and talk without any parents around. I think we need to have those concrete spaces of time.
You guys see anything in April that pops out in your mind?
Would this be video?
I don't think so.
This
I think no video.
I don't think so.
That's going quite a ways, but.
I think it would be the only, a time where we really would have to step away from that, because we want open.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
But you know, I just want, as someone who's maybe not been a part of those before, even attended, I think it would be helpful. I didn't even know what that was. So like I was like, well, how do these work? Oh, so there's we have 4 audiences or whatever, 4 groups, and we allot them time.
Yep. The groups we had in the past, we had support staff, certified staff, students, and parents.
Okay.
One thought that I had was trying to, like, a whole bunch of stuff together. We have a forum scheduled for March 20th. It is a free night activity-wise and stuff besides the forum, and I thought if we set it up so that maybe support staff could go first, so that they can go home, then certified staff after that, students, and then parents at 6:30, maybe some of those parents would just lead right into the forum, and we could have a nice big if it works, because April really looks hairy with the high school and middle school schedule. I pulled it up and it's like there are some days where the day is like this long because there's 20 different activities going on. So just something to consider. If we could use it as a feeder for the forum, I thought that might be a nice touch. And that's all I have. So I appreciate the conversation.
It's really good. I like all of it.
Yeah, are we gonna,
Is
is
March
that forum
20th
gonna
the day?
happen?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
You want us to try to move forward on something like that? I mean, we
Are you
can.
looking at like a 4:30 or 4?
How long of a time did they
I'm
get?
looking at our notes.
5?
Yeah, probably like 4:30 for support staff, yeah, because we want parents to have, I mean, we don't, unless we do it in the high school, but you'd hate to be having a great conversation and say, oops, sorry, gotta go for them.
So how long did they get?
30 minutes.
30 minutes, okay.
Support staff 4:30, certified at 5, students at 5:30, patrons at 6.
Kim, when you did that, how did you stay out of management stuff?
Yeah.
Because I want to be mindful of we don't get in any Lindsay's issue. So how did you keep it at a level where it's not involving management
Carrie,
issues?
did you ever attend any of them with me? I was trying to remember. Like the students, that student council would come a lot of times and they'd talk about food, you know, I mean, better cafeteria stuff, different initiatives, just things they wanted to share with us.
I think it's the prefacing of it ahead of time that, you know, that what the purpose of it is, and maybe if there's an issue of what the purpose, what the purpose is and what the non-purpose is.
Yeah.
So that if you that there's certain issues that you would not want to be brought to that table. And I think you have to be pretty clear of the purpose and the non-purpose.
Yeah, and have that in writing.
And have that right in the thing, so that you can say, you know, this is for, you know, I mean, I think that there are certain voices that sometimes, like students and that feel that, you know, that they can have issues heard that maybe they don't always think that they get to be heard. And
Carrie, one of the things that we did, we've had a couple of communication meetings, and in those meetings we talked about we've set out exactly, you know, what we're here for and how we're going to, you know, move forward. Now that's not to say that we tell people what they're talking about, but we've said, you know, we're not going to be talking about personnel. That's not.
yeah, I think that's just what I mean. That's your non-purpose is not. You're not going to bring up specific names, or you know, that's a different type of meeting than what this is.
But there's a lot that can be gained from the fact of listening to some of the people and their thoughts, and I think that. You know, again, we don't want to, and I agree, we don't want to get out there on the fringe with, you know, we're talking about, well, we should do this with this person, or we should do that with that person. But there are some really interesting thought processes that go through that, and I think that we've heard that in some of the meetings we've been at.
Sometimes people are thinking outside the box of things you just don't ever.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I never thought about it that way.
Right.
So it's continuous improvement.
Yep. Yeah, it's done in the spirit of continuous improvement.
Yeah. And if Kim, if you want to, you know, kind of brainstorm what we might need to have reduced to writing so that we make sure that we get it headed the right direction when people come in, that we want to just make sure
I think
that.
sometimes it's just like you said, people just like to know that they're heard.
Right.
I think that's it right there.
Right.
Yep.
So what are like outcomes of these kinds of meetings? Or in the past, like sometimes they become board agenda items, sometimes if they're ideas. Is it pretty much just like a way you listen and make sure that the right people hear? What usually comes about at the end of these? Other than just, I mean, listening and hearing these things and getting that, but what you, I've just never
Most
had
of
been
it
a
was
part of
just
it.
quick answer sort of things that people didn't, they weren't major issues. Some people would come just to say thank you for a particular thing. Some people would come and ask a question. You've got people right here to answer the kinds of questions that came up. Very few of them were controversial or
I just thought if there were ideas, like somebody said, well, maybe it's continuous improvement, like they have ideas. It's a matter of funneling it to the right people
Right.
who maybe could listen or something. Is that like
Well,
the
and
nature of
like
it?
Carrie said, those, wow, I did never think of that
Yeah.
kind of thing. It just spurs on next steps
Oh,
for something.
Okay.
Cool.
And there might be some time, maybe there won't be anybody that comes, but I think that after, if you get back in the habit of this becomes practice again, I think that you will see people coming to those.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Good discussion. Thank you for putting that together, Kim.
So are we just gonna start using, we can start using those forms, or is that, like, that will just happen? I don't know, I was just asking, we'll do that.
I'm throwing the ball into Gail and Stacy's court. I asked, and it was like in my inbox faster than I could like even think of.
I can meet with Gail and make sure that, like, because I'll take myself off as a person, and then we'll add whoever, whether it be Gail and Lindsay, that both need to have access to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we just access it through
Your
our Google Docs, right? That's how I found it after to share. Okay, awesome.
I think the one thing for Gail to know, which I think she probably knows, that when we do the edit is, like, what email do you want that to go to? Do you want that to go to your Gilbert CSD email, or is there one that you don't check? Because I know that not everybody uses that email as frequently as they use maybe others.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And if you don't like that, they can forward those to the email of your choice.
Oh,
So
okay.
that works out really good for me. So it just shows up with just just says Gilbert Community Schools behind it. So I know that this hit my email, my school email, but I get them all.
Yep, you
all
just
my
forwarded
emails.
that through.
Yeah.
John will teach that lesson next week.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm getting way too much credit.
Yeah.
But,
I have everything. I have all mine dumped into my main one too, so I can see it.
But
Yeah.
anyway, that's really handy.
Yeah,
So
awesome.
Thank you, Kim. That was
Um,
really good. I like
I
that.
would probably, the one that I would go to is when I notify you that I put the items in the Dropbox, because I have all of them together. If you don't like, if you're, that's not your priority one that you want me to use, let me know. Because that's my board contact list when I notify you.
Well, that's a good one for me. That works
So-
really well.
I need to.
Yep, awesome.
good.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Financial reports. Yeah.
Okay. So the summary of this is we have lots of tuitions going out, receiving tuitions, but actually the tuitions, we're probably about 50 to 75% in January, and the remainder will be paid in February, so you won't see that until next month. So that was, I'll tell a little bit more of a story later on. But so for now, for the actuals, month-to-date revenues are $1,113,968, and year-to-date is $8,348,595. And then our monthly expense to date actuals is $1,124,209. Year-to-date is the $6,751,494. So the monthly gain is actually a little behind, but we actually receipted less, and you'll see that in the budget, the next one. We're actually receipted less in tuitions that will probably come in February and didn't make the January close date. And then property taxes will be coming in, let's see, we pay in March, so we'll be seeing them in April. So then you'll see that in the budget piece on the next page, our monthly revenues are behind 357 compared to where we could be. But if you look up here, the tuitions, the 548 we're behind. So we'll be receiving those in February. I would hope so. They've been billed. I billed them clear back in December. So I would hope they'd be in there February. If not, we'll see them in March for sure. But I would imagine most of them will show up in February. And then, so that's what the main piece to this missing is the tuition here, the 548.
Is that open enrollment?
Open enrollment, yes. Special ed, we estimate, so it's low. And then we estimate in the first semester, but then the actuals aren't done until June. So between special ed and open enrollment is that piece right there. So then on the expenditure side, you know, we're looking really good here. We have just one that pops out is this building administration, but you know, as we see it about every month, and we dug into that a couple months ago. So everything else is green, so that's good. Overall, the monthly loss, here's that tuition thing showing up again because our expenditures are higher than our revenue. So then we go into the actual comparison budget. This stays the same every month, so I won't go into that. This stays stagnant. And so then on the turn the page, on strong cash balances again, compared to a year ago, continually. I have no concerns here. I'm assuming you guys don't either. The published budget comparison is we're overall 40.58%, which is about 17 and 3/4 under where we could be at this point. If you notice, last month we were a little ahead. We were over on total other expenditures, and I said that's because of, you know, one-time big dollar amounts, and then we don't spend anything now until June. So you can see it's catching up again already in 1 month. So, and then here's, I wanted to do a little bit more to show you, and I'll bring this up again next month because I wanted to show you what for tuitions. So year to date on expenditures of regular ed, tuition, and then special ed, and then maybe you don't know what the difference of tuition and open enrollment. If a student is, let's say they're in our district, and we are going to send them to another school, and they don't fill out open enrollment forms, then that would be considered tuition. So open enrollment is where the open enrollment for tuitions, most of the fees and things are there. Special ed is 32.8, and as you can see, we have not paid any open enrollment as of January. Now you'll see it on the bills, a big one for Ames. Well, that actually is getting approved tonight to make payment for tomorrow. So our expenditures won't come through for open enrollment until February. You'll see it in the books anyway. But there's some other tuitions going on. Special ed, we've paid 32 to different students that live in our district that are attending elsewhere. Vocational community colleges and post-secondary. So anyway, I want to break that down, and I'm going to bring this back next month so you can see these are big ticket items for Gilbert. And we receive, I think I had to make a phone call to Iowa State because I didn't agree on some of the tuitions that they sent us. So that bill is, we'll be paying that bill. So that'll be coming through. So I just some information because they are big ticket items.
Why is there such a jump in special education in the vocational? Are they new programs or programs that we've discontinued?
Strive. Strive is a new, we have 3 students, which I think is higher. Would we have 1 maybe? And now we have 3. They're attending DMAC and a Strive program.
Okay.
And it's expensive.
Like full-time attending, do you mind?
Full-time, yeah.
Oh, as opposed to like one class here or there?
Yeah, full-time.
It's a postgraduate
Program.
program, so they are graduates. They graduated from Gilbert, but
we're
they
responsible
yes,
until 21.
They had IEP. There's students that were special education.
That falls under the special
So,
education
yes,
line
they-
item?
yes.
Okay, 21.
That's why I
And
wanted
then
to
the
bring it
vocational,
in.
is that a different program or is that still part of the Strive?
The tuition vocational, we have SPED, which is Strive. And then there's tuition vocational community college, which is, what I want to say, all the opportunities we provide for them to go to DMAC or
concurrent enrollment classes.
Concurrent enrollment, yes.
We're just up 11,000 from last year, which is fine.
And
But
that could
I'm
be
just wondering if it's just
More students.
Yeah.
just more kids.
Could be.
Participating?
Mhm.
Okay.
And the cost might have increased a little bit too, not a big amount, but I would say most of it's probably increased student enrollment.
Okay.
And then post-secondary is your, like, Iowa State.
Mhm. Thanks.
Okay. And then the PEPL, just a few extra purchases, HALA's on there, duplication and software and licenses were 10,000 and more. That's not a lot of activity for PEPL, not a lot of projects going on per se. HALA's been an ongoing, duplication is ongoing, and community computer software licenses is ongoing too. Continuing to work with coaches and sponsors to get the negative balances fixed before June 30th, so trying to work on that. And then, reduce this. Nutrition, first of all, the cash that I talked about, we're just looking great for cash overall. And, I have to say, it's a la carte, because if you can see the student lunches, we're up for lunches. We're serving 109 more than a year ago, but we should be because our enrollment has increased. But breakfast is just plummeted. But
That's why I have to keep paying more all the
so
That doesn't.
we have received a lot of correspondences asking information about our nutrition and student accounts from two different groups. Des Moines Register and the Department of Nutrition. So we're wondering what all this information, we're filling it out, but what are they doing with it, So it'll be interesting. And, Gilbert does not turn, we allow our kids to eat, and we don't feel that it's a problem, and that's what you guys say as a board, so that's what we're informed.
Yep.
We have to have policies. We do have policies. We follow them by letting parents know. We set up payment plans. We do everything. And you'll see that when we approved the audit, one of our audit comments was, okay, we have, I think there's 3 families that had big balances. Okay, how are you going to address this? Well, I just commented that we continually work with families. What will work for them, and we notify them. We don't let it go. We can't let it go. But we work with families the best we can. So unless anybody has any questions, those are I guess that's it for that.
Any questions for Gil?
Something I forgot, and since it's the next item, if we could bring it up. We talked about putting public forum in here, because a lot of times people will come to us and they've got questions in the beginning, and I noticed that, John will say, well, we're going to talk about that later on, we'll address it. Well, this would give people an opportunity to listen to new business and then ask clarifying questions or make brief comments. It's not meant to be a conversation. It's just an opportunity. And I was watching Story County Supervisors meeting, and they have those 2 opportunities, and I felt like it put the questions or comments in a relative position. Maybe we'll never have them, but it gives people that opportunity, again, for more communication if they want it.
Yeah, so I'll try to highlight that as we start meetings, that we'll have an opportunity for public comment at the beginning and then after new business, and really it's just any of the meeting information that you'd like to make a comment on, that we won't have the conversations, but certainly if you would like follow-up from Mr. Beecher, we'll interact it that way.
Can I add something here? If we keep it under new business as the last agenda item, we do not have to change board policy. If we include it as an item, like for example, let's say we're going to name it number 6 and the consent moves to number 7, then we'd have to change our board policy that takes 2 readings, which we can do. But I just kind of wanted to bring that up because it's a board policy of how the agenda flows. And if 6 is not consent, we don't have old business right here, but you know how that flows.
Right.
That is board policy. Yeah. Now, I have it right now as the last item in new business. But if we want to change board policy, we can and give it a number and change board policy.
I think in the spirit of the second public forum is clarification of the new business.
Right.
So my sense is that it fits there.
We'll try it.
Yeah. And maybe we'll never
And
do it.
remind me if I forget it, because what I do is I bring up the old agenda item from last year just to make sure we're flowing and don't forget things, and then if we throw it, so please remind me
Yep.
if we forget it. But do we need a, I put action on here, but I mean, I don't know that we necessarily have to have action. So,
No.
just leave
I
it.
think so, as long as we're
Okay.
agreeable to the agenda, I think.
Yeah.
we're-
Okay, I just have
Sounds
a
good.
question. And this is, when we do public forum, is it just the people that are here? Like, if people are watching online, do they, I'm just asking that, I'm not making a suggestion, but do they ever, is it ever meant to be that way, or is it online, it's,
I stood up at the wrong time. Oh no, better come back over here now. It's
oh,
legit.
sorry.
No,
I just
so
asked
when
you a
we put the recording policy together, the goal is sort of twofold. One is there to be respectful of people who can't make it but want to listen in, and the other one is maybe if someone was here but wanted clarification and to watch it afterwards. It's never meant to replace like that high quality interaction if they're here. So we tried to be really clear in the policy. I can't recall the language exactly, but this is sort of a secondary option. If you want to engage and participate, please
It's
come.
here.
That's sort of how we thought about it.
So that's how we would know, I guess, I mean, if there's nobody in the audience here, you would know. that
They could hear
there's
something
no
crazy
public
and
forum.
drive here,
Remember?
and then
Okay.
like, hey, we want to talk about
Yeah,
this.
gotcha.
Or they could fill out a form and they could be on the agenda.
Very, yeah.
Yeah, right, okay. I just was wondering, thanks.
No, that sounds good. Okay, the consent agenda, is there any items that anyone would like to pull off the consent agenda to discuss? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve those items.
I didn't see anything that hopped out.
Got a giant 6th grade class. I'm reminded of that every time I look at that open enrollment.
Yeah. So,
Jeez.
would you like to make a motion?
Oh, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I was like, I can't remember what it
Any
is.
further
Write these
discussion?
things down.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, stands approved. Calendar, so what do we have for?
Well, I've been kind of marking, February 21st is
Yep.
the CMGC board work session. And that was 5 p.m., right?
Yeah, I
Yep.
was like, what does that stand for? Oh, I remember.
All these acronyms. And then March 19th is the regular board meeting, 6 p.m. March 20th is the board district communication night. And what was it, 4:30?
wow.
So that was it 4:30 or 5?
4:30.
Yeah, 4:30.
Okay.
Yep.
And then March 23rd or 21st is the other public forum.
March 21st.
Yeah.
So
It's the bond referendum. No, it's not the 20th.
Yeah, those should
20,
be stacked
excuse
up
me.
on the
Those
same
are
page.
the
Right,
same
right.
night. 20th is the
Well, what
bond.
was the 21st? We did say something.
Bond ref. What is the 21st?
The IPI training.
IPI training.
Oh, IPI training.
Can I add one item in there, Gail?
Mm-hmm.
So Lindsay has requested from us that we would, oh, Deb just left.
Her son just got to the basketball game. She had to take a phone call quick.
Oh, no. I'm sorry to hear that. Lindsay had requested from us, and I'll repeat this when Deb comes back if she does, that that we would in late February, early March, give him basically his annual review earlier than we have in past years. So I'd like to honor that. And Lindsay had given us a few dates. Lindsay, is this okay?
Yeah, you're
Okay,
fine, whatever.
Lindsay had given us a few dates, the 27th of February, the 28th of February, the 1st of March, as ideal times for him. I felt like instead of just giving a proclamation as to which day, that we could just talk about which ones work. I know we got jammed up with a bunch of stuff, but the sweet thing is I'm coming in way before March events happen, so. The question is, do we want to do, and I'm thinking we do 2 hours, you know, again, we can do 6 to 8 or 5 to 7 or whatever. It's going to take a little, like we talked, it's going to take a little homework beforehand to kind of think through those forms and stuff.
Well, we know Tyler's available March 1st.
March 1st.
Yep. March 1st works for me as well.
Deb, does March 1st work for a superintendent event?
Surprise party? No.
That's the most positive read of that, so thank you.
March 1st.
March 1st is a Thursday.
For what?
Lindsay's.
Oh, yeah, oh, sure.
Graduation.
Yeah.
And
Is there a
what
date
time?
besides a Thursday that could work?
That's out for you.
It's out for me, but
Oh,
Okay, well, we're looking at Tyler's thing.
March 7th would be a Wednesday, right?
That's moving deep
That's,
back. Lindsay, I want to respect, I mean, is it possible to sneak it in before that? I don't know. We asked, oh, Tyler's no.
The 7th doesn't work.
What in the world was that guy doing?
Well, is
Yeah,
it,
he's got, is that,
it's
March 7th.
February, March 1st and March 7th.
so that does, oh, is that too
March-
late for you?
March 7th can work. I just want to know where we're at and what we're
I
doing.
was wondering what the.
Yeah, so the 7th works for me.
You're gonna get input.
And is that, you said Thursday,
Yeah.
Wednesday?
That's
Thursday?
March
Wednesday.
7th works for me.
That's a Wednesday, yeah.
That's it.
That's a Wednesday. Oh, Deb, if we went a little early, you have
If it
commitments
was
at
5 to
7:30? So if we did 5 to 7, would you be okay with
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
Lindsay, are you
Absolutely.
comfortable
Yep.
moving it there?
Yep, yeah,
March
okay.
7th,
Lindsay, you sure?
Yes, sir.
5 to 7
Okay.
p.m.
That's fine.
Okay.
And then, yeah,
So I'll kind of set out, given the timeline we just talked about an hour ago, I'll sort of set out some timelines here of, hey, here's when I'm going to send out this form to y'all. Here's when I'd like it back, so we can send it back to Lindsay.
yeah, so, yeah, give him like 2-3 days.
Oh, I was
You expect
thinking,
it
I was
back.
thinking a week, that everyone got it for a week.
Okay.
And that would be no less than like 3 days before when we're gonna meet, so Lindsay can get a, just a read on what we're thinking.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then Lindsay, we can meet, and depending on that stuff too.
Yep.
to- Before I send this out, I'll share this whole thing with you, we'll talk through a little bit and.
Yeah, so that he
No
would,
surprises.
so Lindsay would have our responses by March 1st, so he would have them for a week.
Yes.
And you'd get it to us by
A week before that, right?
before that.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so we have February 21st, CMGC board work session, 5 p.m. And then March 7th, superintendent evaluation from 5 to 7. March 19th, regular board meeting, 6 p.m. March 20th, board district communication night. And the board referendum forum, public forum.
What was that, the 9th?
Yep.
No, the 19th, no, the 20th.
I mean,
13th is the general one, is it?
Okay.
All right. Any other items to come before the good of the order? Anything in the back row? Good. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Great meeting,
I want
great
you
meeting.
to practice with that thing.
All right, thank you. I'll make some water. Are we going into a closed session?
Executive
just-
session.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's really
Yep.
short.
When you were ready to walk out.
I was like,
That's why the vice president is right here
Yes.
for you.
Keep me from wandering off.
Last basketball game, and he got hurt.
Oh, I need to turn this
on.
Oh my God.
So can you just ride the bus home?
What, I mean, like, turn his ankle?
No, his hip, his hip